Hello, everybody. This is Dr. McGuire coming to you again from Higher Education Assist. Hope all is well. We're here talking careers again. Today is Mr. Brian Reed. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So we're going to talk about real estate. Real estate is one of those unique careers, and I'll let you fill in the blanks in terms of, it could be endless in terms of what you want to do, right? And schedule, and you're more of an entrepreneur, I guess, right, in your field. And Brian, let's just talk about real estate. What does your world look like?
So, I am a real estate agent for 15 years. I had a complete pivot back in 2015. Again, when you have all that loose time, I was using it to go out and have cocktails and celebrate and all that kind of different things, to the point where, that had to stop, and it did. And I repivoted, and I started refocusing in on my career, and I've been able to double my business 5 straight years. And the way my business essentially works is, you need to come in, need to learn the fundamentals in the beginning. You need to have somebody that can train and educate you on, you can pass your real estate exam and you're a realtor. Doesn't mean you know a thing about selling real estate. And most of the work on real estate isn't showing people property. It's all the work that comes with it. And I've been very, very fortunate to become a leader in my industry once I had pivoted, refocused on what I was doing. But my daily is, right now, it's more follow-up. I have a lot of listings, scheduling showings, getting people in and out, negotiating contracts. And I've started building a team because I've gotten too much work. So I have buyer's agents. I have people that focus on certain areas that go out and pay me a certain percentage of their sales, because I draw and give them leads.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the career specifically, right? You talked about different skills. Once you get into the business, right, getting your license is one part. I understand that. But what are some of those skills for individuals looking to be more of an entrepreneur and not have that 9-to-5 corporate world, right? There's pros and cons. You have good days and bad days. So talk to me about that for a minute. So
I really truly believe, if you want to be successful in real estate, you have to get into marketing. You're marketing not only yourself, but your product. You see the background here, that's the pier in Avalon. I'm selling where I'm at in the South Jersey market. I'm selling, right behind me. It's not a hard sell, when you look at a sunrise at the Avalon Pier. But, most of my business is in Wildwood and offshore. You're a marketer, you're a salesperson, you're a shoulder to cry on when someone doesn't get a property.
Right.
You're a master negotiator, whether it's for a home inspection, whether it's a price, whether it's a listing. You really wear so many different hats. You start to become a electrician, a plumber, a roofer. You delve into all these different things. And I would say, all in all, you're a relationship builder, not only with your clients, but all those people that are ancillary: title companies, mortgage companies, HVAC guys, electricians, plumbers, all of that. I have a very, very tight network of people that I refer to and that refer to me as well.
Right. So just for the viewers who are watching that may not be in your particular area, where you work is, how would you define that market where you are in? It looks like it's a beach resort.
Yep. So it's most easily defined as a second home market. Our buyers are primarily people that come from anywhere from 60 to 180 miles away, that either want a vacation home or they're buying it as an investment, not only for their future, but for their kids' future, so that they can accrue rentals. A lot of the properties down at the South Jersey Shore, if you put 20% down, 25% down, and rent it for the season, it'll pay the mortgage. So that's one of the things that investors look at. Myself, I'm not only a realtor, I'm an investor. I'm picking up properties. I'm putting 25% down and having the properties pay for themselves, and doing a 15-year mortgage. I know it's a little deep, but eventually every 15 years, if I buy a house a year, every 15 years, I'll have a house paid off. And in 15 years, I'll own one free and clear. 16 years, I'll own two, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. So in terms of how did you get involved in this field? Did it just come to you one day? Like what led up to this?
So I had worked at a medical book distributor in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and in high school. So I was picking and packing books and loading trailers, all that kind of different stuff. And I eventually got to the point where, um, I was heading off to college, and I went to college, and I was there for about a year and a half. And quite frankly, I was more into the party scene at college. I failed out. I wasn't going to class. It's hard to pass a test when you're not even there to take it. So essentially, I had to take my tail between my legs and go back into a warehouse. I was on that college course, that elevation level where I was supposed to be the kid in the family. High expectations, and they were derailed. So I went back and I knew all the inventory so well, they made me data entry. And I was entering all the books coming from 400 different publishers. And then they put me in sales. And my territory, I lived in Pennsylvania, was all of New York, all of New Jersey. And people think of New York as New York City, and it's not. It's Buffalo to the tip of Long Island. That's a long, long ride. And I did that for 2 years. And then my wife and I decided we wanted to buy a little shore house down in Wildwood, New Jersey. And we bought one, started paying for itself. And then I wanted to sell that and buy another. My wife said, "Why don't you go get your real estate license?" And that's what I did. And the rest is kind of history. I started part-time. I'd come down on weekends when we bought our house. I would sit open houses. I would do that kind of thing. I would learn from other people. And then it got to the point where I was making enough money, and I said, I can make more doing real estate than I can my other job. And that was 2005. And if you know anything about 2005, the bottom just dropped out right then and there. It was almost like a cartoon where you take that big valve and you shut it off and there's just a drip coming out. That's how I learned. And I'm very fortunate. I learned how to sell in the roughest market we've ever had.
So those experiences, I think, humbled you, correct? Right, from where you came from, and you basically rolled up your sleeve, and you were hungry. You have good work ethic, right?
Perseverance.
Perseverance, right?
Perseverance.
Right. So let me ask you, for our target audience, so college technically is not required for real estate, correct?
Correct.
What are your thoughts now on college as it relates to a career, right? Because we put so much energy and focus on you have to go to college or you should go to college, and there's a lot of pressure, not only from parents or from others. What are your thoughts on that? Do you recommend college?
So, I mean, for me, and I hear it a lot, especially in different cultures, many different cultures. If you could be a multimillionaire and they're disappointed that you're not a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, whatever it may be. For me, I actually wrote on it in, my college entry exam, they test your skills. I wrote on how I thought, freshman, sophomore years were really a lot of a waste. It almost feels that if you're on a college track, that you're really relearning what you did in those last couple of years of high school. And for me personally, I would highly recommend someone to go to a community college. Stay close to home. Make sure that it's for you. Don't rack up a ton of student loans. Although they may end up getting relieved. To me, I think if that's the track that you want to go on, there's very specific industries that you're going to need a college degree. I'm seeing it as less and less important. I think it really is for the individual, but there's a lot of businesses. I truly believe, because of the way I market and the way I built my business, is that if you give me a guy who goes to law school and you give me a kid who wants to swing a hammer or be an electrician, and I would have to think that I could take the kid who's an electrician and have him outproduce an attorney, unless he's like the top attorney, all day long. I can put those skills to work for an individual and show him how to market themselves and get enough business that once they become a master plumber, master electrician, go through their apprenticeship, and they want to go out on their own, I can show them how to earn a six-figure business very easily.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a good point. So back to you. How do you stay hungry every day? Right, you went through the early stages, trials and tribulations, I guess. You talked about the market, things go through hot pockets. What inspires you every day?
So to me, this is a really easy question, and I'm on Clubhouse app, and talking with a lot of mindset people. For me, there's two things. I remember my bottom every day. I got to the point where I cashed in my 401k. I was drinking myself to death. And this is again a kid who was supposed to be a high achiever. So I'm not in here to preach, but I was at all-star athlete in high school. I had straight A's. I was on the college level, and it happened. It's not that I'm unique or I'm different, but for me, there's two different things. One is remembering that bottom. I never want to go back there again, and the other is my why. Like I said, cashing in the 401k down to your last paycheck. Don't know how you're going to support your family, and fortunately, we own a few homes now. Have become very successful. But the other is, even after all the success, after doubling and doubling and doubling, I still have my why, which is my wife and my daughter. I have a daughter who may never walk again, and I want to make sure she's set up for life. And the way I do that is to continue persevering every day. And I'd mentioned before, my life's not easy. I have a growing business, and I spent 9 months of last year at the Ronald McDonald House in a one-room hotel, owning three homes right across from a hospital, and just coming back 48 hours, a week to run my business for things that I had to do in purpose, and I had to be there for, and in person. And for me, my why is, looking down at my daughter. And again, even now, that's been July to July was, 12 months. And then we're here in November. We're talking, 18 months of sleeping, getting up at 7 a.m. and being at the hospital at 10 p.m. My daughter, needs to be adjusted at night because she can't roll over. And one of us ends up sleeping with her. And to me, I just get up and I keep going, because there's men and women that helped me when I was at my bottom. I don't want to let them down. I have my daughter, and that's why I do things like this. I try to give back as much as I can to assist. And if someone's struggling or they have questions, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. If Tom, you want to include my email, and if someone says, hey, saw you on Higher Ed and I have questions, feel free to have them reach out. I don't mind giving my time.
No, I appreciate that.
I don't have a ton, but I will always answer.
Right. You don't forget where you came from, right? It's kind of a way of paying it forward. So, all right. So let's transition into what you just said. Well, let's assume that one is starting out. Everybody has, again, their trials and tribulations. Assuming that maybe an individual does not have too many things going on, right? Their career's wide open. And what suggestion would you give them from an entrepreneurial perspective to stay motivated?
So, for me, and again, I don't want to go into deep details. For me, it's funny. Complacency can be tough. And, when, everyone has an image when they're a kid. If I could make, listen, I'm 47 years old. I thought if I could make $50,000 a year, my life would be set. And I had that mentality, that mindset that 50,000 was a number, 60,000 was a number. What ends up happening is when you become even more successful, and you hit that 6-figure range, and you say, you know what, wow, I've really made it. And then you start realizing that that's not it. And then you double that and double that, and you get closer to that 7-figure range at times. And you say, you know what, it then doesn't become about the money. It becomes about why you are really doing this. And that basically goes back to your mindset. 6 figures to me, doesn't look like a massive big deal anymore because I've gone beyond that number. Multi-millions is, to me, something that's unfathomable, and used to be unfathomable, but I don't have that mindset anymore. I'm listening to a lot of multimillionaires and billionaires because I'm in an app that I mentioned, the Clubhouse app, and I'm listening to them, and that motivates me, not their money, but what they're able to actually do with their money. And I was on, and I listened to people struggling, and there was all these millionaires, and there were people that I didn't even know, but they all donated like $1,000 to all these single, like people were coming up on stage and said, "Hey, look, I'm struggling with this," and someone said, "All right, I'm cash apping her $1,000."
Wow.
And they did that, and it got to like 40-some thousand dollars in that one room. So it's not about the money; it's about what you can do with that money as well.
You brought up a good point, and honestly, I haven't heard that in a while from my other interviews. And not that it was we focused on a lot, but the fact that you said that money really is not everything, sure, it helps. Kind of like winning the lottery, maybe.
Only people with money say that money isn't everything.
Yeah, right.
Or somebody going through a loss, but once you have everything you need and some luxuries, you only come to realize it in days and times like these. Everyone just wants to go hug somebody. Everyone wants to go see their family. Everyone wants to go travel. Everyone wants to go. And so we realize that, no, I don't hear anybody saying, "Oh, I wish I had more money." Now I'll hear it's tough with rent, groceries, things like that. But it's more of missing people, places, things.
Well, let me ask you, do you think we lack compassion today?
So I think that in private, we're compassionate. I think in public, I think we're so back up against the wall. I think when you can sit with a group of individuals that are not like you, and you can not only hear them, but you listen, I think you're fine. I think, the political landscape, which I don't delve into at all, I'm hearing both sides preaching, again, Democrats saying all this Trump, and then they're putting hatred towards Trump, and they're wanting you to practice patience and tolerance with someone that's not like me. And I'm seeing the same thing on the Republican side. They're all against Biden because they're doing this and doing that. It's just a bunch of white noise. There's 50% on either side, but I think. And one of my mentors is Gary Vaynerchuk. I follow him. And it's not that everybody out there, okay, there's so much negative. It seems like there's so much negativity because negativity is just louder. It's only 1 or 2% that are making all the noise. I look at my circle of friends, whether they're Trump or they're Biden, when we get together, we're not spewing hate. We're not talking about all these things. But what you end up seeing is, the people on Facebook, the people on social media, the people on these networks spewing their spin on everything. It's amazing. These programs go into, if they're for Biden, they talk about how Trump rally will do this. If they're for Trump, they're saying how the Biden, they're putting it together. Nobody's wearing masks, and they're blaming each other, and both are the same sides doing the same thing. It's almost laughable. I just I let them whirl. I let them do their own thing, and I stay in my own lane.
So what I hear is listening, right? Listening and respect, I think, goes a long way, right? We can disagree,
Empathy.
but yeah, right. Let's talk mentorship. Who, if anybody, has been an influence to you throughout the years or now, political, personal,
So
professional?
there's really two people. When I was struggling, and I won't name him by name because it'd be calling him out, but I have a sponsor that helped me from like day 8, when I tried to stop drinking and things like that. And I've been with him since, I guess it would be August 1st, 2015. We talk almost on a daily basis, and he led me to gentleman named Gary Vaynerchuk, who was he was an immigrant from Belarus who came over at age 5 and has grown himself into his business is worth $500 million. And he's just taught me how to market myself via social media. And that's what I started doing when I had no money. I would do organic social media reach and grow that way. And it's amazing what ends up happening when you do something every day with purpose. And it's regardless of what that is. And for me, it's been Facebook. There's certain things I do every day or try to, but I haven't missed posting on Facebook since November 1st, 2016.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's, you talk about, and it's something it's either something related to the community or real estate, or, something like this in the background. Like I'll take a picture and maybe I'll put a quote like mindset is everything. Or I'll go down and I'll do a sunrise live video. So it's not necessarily hitting you over the head with real estate. It's showing the community. Right now in the middle of winter, most of the people are 60 to 180 miles away. Like for me to go down there and post a sunrise, people appreciate that. I'll take my daughter out to, Mud Hen Brewing Company in Wildwood, and I'll take a picture of her and I'll tag Mud Hen, and it'll be daddy and daughter date. And I'll, engage with people and say, hey, what's your favorite appetizer here? I really love the Mud Hen chips with their special dips. So you're creating engagement and things like that. And that's what Gary taught me, what to do. And he's really, I had an opportunity to meet him my first real year of implementing where I doubled my business. And I took him up a plaque, it's a tile, and across it says, I didn't come this far to only come this far. And I gave that to him, and it's actually in his office. And I've given that to a lot of people who I've seen people who were literally living under a bridge, homeless, eating out of trash cans, become garbage men. And I mean, that to me is just a massive, massive thing. I'll give him a tile, and know that there's just more. And Gary's a multi-millionaire. There's nothing I could give him, but something like that, is, and I literally drove up. He was at an event for his brother. He was hosting it, and it was for Crohn's disease. Gary's not one of those people that, unless you're paying 10, 20 grand to get a seat at the table, you're not going to be able to see him. And I didn't have that. So I drove up to West Orange, New Jersey. I'm a non-drinker. It was a wine tasting. And I hit him up on social media. He responded. He said, there's going to be a lot of food. I said, I just want to come up and say thank you. I owe a debt of gratitude to you. I just want to come up and say thank you and get a picture. He's like, I'm in, come on up. So I drove 2.5 hours. I met him in the first 10 minutes. He walked in the door, took the picture, told him how much he meant to me, gave me a big hug. I was tearing because he changed my family's life. I mean, truthfully, I mean, he truly changed their life. And I owed that debt, and I got back in my car and I drove home. So it was 5 hours for 5 minutes with the guy. And, the other question you asked, right? So there's a lot of men and women who helped me along the way. And, when I was sick and suffering, and, for me, I owe them a debt. I don't have any unintentional debt in my life right now. I do have mortgages, but that's intentional. I have a car loan at 0.9% financing, which is, basically saying free. Just pay us, monthly to pay it off. There's no real interest there. But to me, I have a debt that is owed every day to the men and women who helped me. And that debt is daily, in perpetuity. It's never going to go away, and I can never, ever pay it off. So for me, that's another one of my whys, why I persevere, why I do things like this, why I offer to mentor, people at times. Like I don't have time to teach, I'm growing a team. I bring people over that are 2 to 3 years in the business because I don't have time to teach you how to write a contract, how to sell real estate, but I can give you tips and tricks and help you pull you up. And we only look down on people when we're bending down to pick them up. So.
Yeah. Where do you think you would be right now if you'd have a strong mentorship?
I'd be dead.
Be dead.
I mean, for me, I'd be dead. I mean, that's the long and short of it. If I wasn't introduced to Gary V, if I didn't hit a bottom, I'd probably be making you know, $50,000, $60,000 a year. And I don't want to go into complete details, but, 10 times that, is reality for me on a yearly basis if I want to strive for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming from a kid failed out of college. I don't have while I hit a bottom that was really, really ugly, I don't have this unique story. My dad was a tire worker. My mom sold Avon. I didn't have a lot of direct mentorship throughout my life. I had people that, I looked up to, but there was never a time where I even asked for assistance or decided to get coaching or, a lot of what I've learned, watching other people, asking questions is very, very important.
Is that hard to do? Ask for questions.
The smarter you get, the more questions you'll ask, which means the smarter you'll get, which means you'll ask more questions.
So give me an example of that.
So, I think a lot of times people are afraid to ask a question because they're going to seem dumb. A lot of times I'll be in rooms with people that are doing similar things to me, and it'll get turned to me, and they'll say, what do you feel about this? And I'll just be honest. I have no idea what you're talking about on that level, but I'm here to learn from you. And all of a sudden, after that panel or whatever you're doing, you go to a sidebar, you learn about it, and it helps you to pivot into your business. I don't mind getting my hand up. I'm not shy. They say that, that one of the biggest fears in the world is public speaking, and number 2 is death. So it basically tells me that you might be more comfortable in the casket than you are giving the eulogy, so, asking questions is tough, especially for men. Men are built and felt as if they're supposed to know everything. It's why, there's stereotypes. Men don't ask for directions when they're car. I know most kids don't even have the fathom of not knowing how to get to some place because everything goes into a GPS these days. But, we used to have these things called maps, and, we used to have to look at the map and try to figure out my whole territory of all of New York and all of New Jersey. I had to go to the computer and print out, destination to destination MapQuest. I actually used Map Blast until they got bought out and they changed their routine. But I would have to do that for a full week, 4 appointments a day, going to the hotel the night before, going to all the different stuff. So
yeah.
Sorry if you hear buzzing in the background. The phone's
No worries. No worries. Just a few more questions. So let's talk work ethic for a second, because your portfolio, your experiences, based on what you just told us, is a breath of fresh air, in my opinion. So let's touch on work ethics. What does that mean to you, and what should it mean to others?
So everyone has their own definition of that. For me, it's to thine own self be true. If I'm telling you that you should get up at 6 a.m., start your days in certain ways, do certain things, then, I sure as hell better be doing it myself, and, for me, I've gotten into some patterns. I've gotten into good habits. I've gotten into bad habits. Again, I post every single day. The first thing I do is I pick up my phone. I have an accountability network. There's about 8 of us that we're checking in. It's usually just good morning. Make sure that we're all there, that we're all just, keeping each other accountable. And some people are doctors, some people are, again, like trash men, but we all look out for each other. And if someone doesn't post for a couple of days, they're getting a call. Like, hey, where are you? What's going on? How you doing? But the other thing I do is I grab my phone and I Facebook for me. You still got me?
Yep.
All right. So it looked like it said my internet connection was getting a little unstable. I have my daughter here, my wife, we're all working from home. So, but for me, Facebook is Facebook's more of a marketing thing. So it's not necessarily a pleasure. I do have pleasure on there, but I do my post every morning. It's almost the first thing I do every day. Get it out of the way. And it's routine. It's accountability, Facebook post to make sure that gets hit. And then, again, here's a tip for a lot of you. Make a list at night of all the things that you need to do the next day. and then you won't be thinking about what else you need to do. You're going to get a better sleep. I mentioned I wake up many times through the night. When I lay my head down at night, like I've given 110% every single day. Within 30 seconds, I'm asleep. And when I get up to go with my daughter and I got to adjust her, I can lay back down, whether it's in her room or in back in my room. And again, as soon as my head hits the pillow, I'm back out asleep. And that's because of work ethic. I burn it all day long. And then, I think it's having that to-do list and accomplishing those tasks. I'm really good under the gun. If you give me 6 hours worth of work and tell me 2 hours to do it, I'm awesome. If you give me 2 hours of work and tell me I have 6 hours to do it, I'm terrible at times. That's where self-awareness comes in. And if you can be honest with yourself and know where you're at, self-awareness is one of the keys to any entrepreneur or business person. And know what you do well, know what you do poorly, and delegate what you do poorly.
That's awesome, right? Time management, accountability is what my main focus is, and so you touched on those things. So 2 more things. Are you happy right now? Let's just say money aside, if you're comfortable. Are you happy now being an entrepreneur and doing your own thing and creating those opportunities versus if you had to go to the other side and work the 9-to-5 corporate job? There's no right or wrong, but what are your thoughts?
I couldn't do it again. I was a salesman on the road for 2 years before they asked me to come back in to be the director of purchasing. So I went from data input on all the books to a sales rep. I spent 105 nights on the road, 2 years in a row in New York and New Jersey. And then they came back and put me in behind the desk.
But what from a career perspective, long term, if you had to stay in that world, it could have been with that company or another one. What specifically did you not like about working for somebody else?
The freedom, and for me, I can go as fast and as slow as I want in my business. I personally could take the next year off if I wanted to. I would never do that because I'd lose so much traction. But, if I said, I want to take a year off, I was prepping. Again, I told you I've doubled my business each of the past 5 years. I thought this past year was going to be horrific. In March, my wife and I had a very honest and open conversation. I don't know that people are going to be buying second homes. We could be on quarantine. People aren't traveling down there. People might be losing their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's one of those situations where, I had to prepare for that. And, maybe I would have to pivot. I think there's some avenues for me to go. I don't think there'll ever be a time where I go and get behind a desk again. And it's only because I've seen the other side, like, why the caged bird sings, I have to go out there and I have to spread my wings. I'm a idea guy, and I think that ideas and inspirations is as abundant as the air we breathe. You just have to be open to it. But please, and if I can't express something more, inspiration is great. Ideas are great. But without execution, you have nothing but a pipe dream. And my buddy Gary Vee says, a screwdriver works, but you got to turn it. So that's one of my things that it's just a constant reminder. I have the best idea in the world for the shore. I don't have the time to implement it, but what's the one thing you see up by the trash cans at the end of the day at a beach every day? Beach chairs, broken beach chairs, right? So you have broken beach chairs. Go grab all the beach chairs, cut out the material, right? Go buy zippers and buttons, make wristlets and beach bags out of that material. Some of them are Tommy Bahama, and then co-sign or sell it back to those stores that are boutiques and tell them, hey, look, this is repurposed. You're selling a wristlet or a beach bag for $30 that someone threw out earlier in that day. Inventory is free.
That's a great idea.
So if you know how to sell, there's your idea to make, forget the part-time job. You could make, $8,000 to $10,000 down the shore this coming summer.
That's great. All right, two more things. I promise, and I'll let you go. So, and I haven't asked this in a while, but we as a society see a lot of motivational speakers, right? Whether it's the TikTok app for the younger kids, the Facebook, a lot of rah-rah going on, in my opinion. How does one decipher or comb through the validity of one giving their spiel on motivation, right? Because rarely, in my opinion, is there an example to follow up based on what one is saying about, be all you can be and what have you. So how does one wrap their arms around and embrace somebody who is coming across as a motivational speaker?
So, I think if you look at some of the big names, and again, I hate to keep going back to this app, but, I have two people that coached, that I've connected with. One coach, Tony Robbins, back when he was younger, and the other coach, Gary Vee. I came across them on this app. And, Grant Cardone has been on, and I've been on the stage with him now a few times, like in this, voice app. And he was someone I thought was, one of these rah-rah guys. And, I saw him years ago, and I really didn't care for him, although he's very similar to some of the guys that, are completely inspirational for me. But I see him on a different level on this app, giving back and being empathetic and caring. I think in today's day and age, I always put it like this. If you wanted to find out how old Joe Pesci was in Home Alone 1, and you look to do that 20 years ago, like it would take you days of research to try to figure that out. You have to go to an encyclopedia or somewhere. You have to try to figure out when Home Alone was done. Okay. You had to figure out when Joe Pesci was born. You had to figure out like how old he was in that movie. And it takes with time and effort. I can take my phone right now and say, how old was Joe Pesci in Home Alone? And the answer is right there. I think we're very fortunate these days that you can go to Wikipedia, you can go to somebody's bio and read their backstory. Like I know Gary was a kid from Belarus that came over at 5, that his prized possession is a Jets sweater that was knitted by his parents, his mom, because he wanted a Jets jersey, but they were poor immigrants. She knitted him one. And she told him that if he wanted another one, he had to go out and figure out how to buy it. And his journey's been documented, from where his start was all the way through. And you have there's a gentleman, I think his name's Eric Thomas, who's a big motivational speaker. You can read up on these guys and see who they were or what they were. And then there's just other people who have honed their craft. They became famous for being an inspirational speaker. Paris Hilton, or not Paris Hilton, but Kim Kardashian became famous for being famous, but now she's grown that business. She's probably fantastic in marketing a new product, while other people can just say, hey, I'm going to hold up my product, and that sells itself because they've established themselves. So really, you have to see who you kind of blend with, who is the person that's telling your story, and click on them. Gary Vee, when I was watching him 4 or 5 years ago, he's just like, I don't need followers. I don't want followers. My dream is that you'll stop following me, that you'll stop listening to me, that you'll go out and execute. Like, I don't need any more money. I don't need any more followers. I need you to go take action. And some of his videos I have saved that I can listen to when I hit that point where I'm like, either feeling sorry for myself, lack of motivation, and I'm there. All of a sudden I'm like going again. And different songs, like you got to figure out where you get your motivation. The last scene of 8 Mile with Eminem, in the rap battle where he gave the guy all his faults and said, okay, now what? That gives me chills. And each person has to figure out where their motivation comes from and go from there. I think you can hammer down and figure out who's full of BS and who's real pretty quickly these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're very forthright and honest with a great perspective. So last but not least, where do you go from here at this point in your life? What are your goals? So
last year, when I was at the house, I pay for some advertising through things, and I actually switched my number. I was paying, I'll be quite honest, a few $1,000s a month to get leads in one system. I actually changed my phone number to that was actually 2019 to someone else's phone number, and so that they could get the leads and go with it. And my goal last year was to have my team increase their business. My goal was to almost stay the same or go back, but increase theirs. And yet I still doubled mine, and I doubled theirs. So my goal this year again is to bring the people along that are part of my team to be able to get to where I'm at as well. And I'll share one story. There's a woman who came over late 2019 into 2020. She came over from another team. She took a chance. She saw what I was doing. She thought our mindsets matched. And she came up to me at the end of the year and she said, I congratulated her on she had refinanced her house. And she said, Brian, she said, you have no idea. Like, she doubled her business this year. She said, this gives me chills. She said, well, I was able to refinance my house because, the way that you've helped me, I was able to pay off all my debt to raise my credit score to refinance the house, which then enabled her, once she refinanced the house, she had an older car. It was on its last legs. And she ended up being able to get a new car because she had refinanced her house, saving money, paying off the debt. And then she told me, and this is the key, forget all the money, forget all the refinances. She goes, it's the first time in 6 years that I've been able to get health insurance for my family.
Wow.
And, as a parent of a child with disabilities, you're just empathetic to those things. I can't imagine, where we'd be without that. So, there's another why, and again, you ask, and, I have my primary, but, I have my secondary too. I have people that count on me every day to do things. And, I don't take that lightly. Their success is dependent on mine, and mine's dependent on theirs. We work together as a team, not, anyone above or beyond. We're next to each other.
So do you look at yourself and pat yourself on the back at all? Which is okay, right? It's okay. And sometimes people who've gone through these things, such as what you did, don't. But
I'm a middle child. So I'm still, I still feel like I'm competing. Like, listen, if you start patting yourself on the back, others will do it for you for a job well done. So you really don't, once you start getting there, you don't need to do that. I would implore you that if you're patting yourself on the back at this point, regardless of where you're at, your goals and your dreams aren't big enough. If you think you've attained, there's a few things you can have immediate goals for the day, goals for the year, goals for 5 years, but put one out there that you think is totally unobtainable. And, Gary V's is to buy the jets. I don't really have that massive one. I'm telling you to sit here and do that. I have to give a good hard look at that. And
but don't you think, I'll kind of rephrase it. So temperature checks, right? Because I think it's important based on, we'll say you, for example, having come, this far, experiencing different things, maybe not necessarily a pat on the back, but a temperature check, right? Knowing what you accomplished or things that worked or didn't work, just to check in with yourself.
Yeah, I would say that anyone that's heard me speak and tell my story, I get choked up, and that's primarily gratitude for where I'm at and what I've done. So I would say, I do take a nightly inventory of, who I am and what I've done, who I may owe an amends to, what I did right, what I did wrong. So I think most of that is because I do it on a daily basis. I probably do need to dig deeper at times and say, hey, are you happy with your life, your mind, your body, your spirit, your work? all these things that come in. And I'm usually good if you talk about mind, body, work. I'm usually good with 2 out of the 3 at all times. So if I were to start going on one of my health kicks where I lose a bunch of weight, one of the other things tends to fall out. It's either my spiritual life, my work might struggle a little bit because I'm focusing on so many different things. But there's a balance, and there's times where, when the belt gets too tight, you got to focus on that. You got to do that. Or if you find yourself being short with your wife or with your family or with your colleagues, you got to go back to that spiritual. You got to go back to that mental mindset of where you're at. So, again, the nightly inventory keeps me in check, that temperature gauge of who I am, what I am, where I'm at, where I want to be. I hope that answers your question.
Sure. Did you ever hear of emotional intelligence?
Yes.
Okay. So we won't get into that pretty deep, but to piggyback off what you just said, so it's being able to process, right, the emotions, and it's not how smart one is, even though the word intelligence is in there, but just being able to process your emotions. And it seems like you have done a good job. Brian, last question. So again, in short, what advice would you give somebody who is young, who wants to figure out their life? I know it's a wide open question, but
So no, I mean, I have an answer because, again, I would pick up the book. If you're not a big reader, pick up Think and Grow Rich. And it talks about, I would tell you, figure out what your passion is, have a burning desire, and put a plan in effect, and then start. And then perseverance is if you want to be successful, you got to persevere. And the one story in that book, Think and Grow Rich, and it's not about how to get rich, it's how about to go after your desires and your burning desire, and how to do that. And there's a story how this undermanned fleet is going to fight this army, and they're going to their island to fight, and they're undermanned. They know that they're probably outmanned and outmatched. They all get onto the island, and the leader basically said, go back and burn the boats. And so that they basically they were either, surviving and winning, or they were dying. There was no choice. So you'll find out that a lot of entrepreneurs have that same mentality, that like they don't have an option. I came down to the Jersey Shore. I had a baby on the way. I'd really just started in the industry. I left a job of 15 years. I didn't have a choice. I had to go out and I had to sell. Like I went from a nice paying office job to straight commission. If I didn't sell, I didn't put food on the table.
That's hard.
Yeah, that's kind of the, but I say don't have a backup plan. So if you're really going to go after it, don't have a backup plan, because in the back of your mind, that plan's always there. It's always there for you to fall back on. Go all in.
But what if somebody doesn't know what they want to do, though? I mean, their work ethic, their drive, they have all those components, right?
Test and learn, man. Try different things. Just taste. Go get a bunch of appetizers. Go and talk to people in that industry. Find out who the most successful realtor is. Find out who the most successful mortgage guy is. Find out who the most successful plumber is, the electrician, and say, so after you start it and you've been doing it, you're now doing it 20 years, what's it like? And figure out whether you want to be there in 20 years.
That's great. That's great advice. Absolutely. All right, Brian, I'm not going to hold you up anymore. I appreciate it. I will include your information when I associate this interview to others, and I appreciate the opportunity for them to reach out to you with any questions.
You got it.
Hopefully, we can connect at a future time.
Absolutely. So if you want to, I guess, going to stop recording, I'll stay on the line, maybe.
Sure. Yep. 1 second. Thanks, Brian.